The difference between yoga teaching and yoga coaching. Now, about 10 years ago, I transitioned into this system. That all is about is moving from classes to coaching. And the reason I did it was because, I've been teaching classes now for over 40 years. So I had done it for a long time. And when I started, my focus unequivocally was physical. I was right into the asana and I was doing a lot of it. I taught Iyengar, I taught Ashtanga, I taught Bikram, power vinyasa, all those different systems. And, I was exercising a lot, I was doing triathlons, I was surfing a lot. So it really fitted into the paradigm of how I was perceiving the world. And also, the people that were coming to classes, they liked, the high physicality, the people that I drew in. Now, at about 22, 23, I got really sick, burnt out, burning the candle at both ends. And what I kind of realized was that I was doing all the asana and it was great. I was getting bendy. I was doing like all the kind of advanced poses, but nothing was really changing at a deeper level. So then I packed up shop. I went to India and I was going backwards and forwards for decades. And then when I was working with these, I was very fortunate to have connection to, high-level masters or gurus, we might call them. And what I realized was there was hardly any physical application in how they were working with me. But they were working more on consciousness. They were working more on the subtle body, working with the mind and consciousness. And it really changed things up. It was super challenging because it was a recreation of how I perceived myself to be in the world. And it created a better version of me. And it was so liberating. It was an amazing experience. And, I came to the conclusion that as an educator, I had to be able to teach more than the physical practice. So essentially that's what a yoga coach does, is that they're working on the subtle body, they're working on the mental body, they're working with consciousness. So they're working on the whole level. Largely with teaching classes, it's a physical focus. I mean, that's just a simple reality. Most people are coming to most classes for a physical reason. We call it an alternate fitness offering. They're coming for flexibility, strength, for a workout, whatever it might be. And it's great. It's a great service for the community. And sometimes we think, we're teaching, like our exercise is better because it's spiritual exercise. Well, in isolation, it's still just exercise. It's a different form. And coaching includes the whole person. So you're working on the physical level, the emotional level, the mental level, and spiritually. And what a coach does is you're looking at where a person is and where they want to go. And then yoga is really a process of removing the obstacles, removing the false identities, as they say, removing the veils to who we truly are. And, this model in the background, the koshas, is really, the simplest model to understand that. Because where that arrow points to the center, and I don't think you can see it on the Instagram, just move it across a little bit, Chicky. Yeah. Is the center of the koshas. So that we would call, I like to call it the question mark because, we might call it Brahman in yoga circles, but it might also be called God. It might be called spirit. It might be called the quantum field. But it's the unified field. And everything in yoga is designed for us to come back to this unification. That's what yoga means, to yoke. And the yoking is just simply removing the veils and false identities, the interference. So the first thing that unfolds out from that white center is universal intelligence of your spirit. And it's a very, very high vibrational state. And the vibrational quality of that is love, joy, compassion, and equanimity. So when you see those high-level teachers, that is who they are. It's not like they're feeling. That is what they're vibrating, right? It's super powerful. You can feel it. It's very palpable. The next thing that folds out in the orange layer, the darker orange layer, is that intelligence falls into every cell in your body. Right? So you have access to this universal intelligence. It's the blueprint for your genius. It's the blueprint for your well-being. But then the problem at the gray level is then we have a mind, right? And then we start to create separation. We start to have beliefs and attitudes. We decide how the world is based on our experiences. We start to develop an idea of how it is, and then it becomes hard set. So all a belief does is all these layers on the inside, it's just spaciousness. It's open space. It's a unified field. But a mind binds it, it narrows it to a certain point, puts a boundary around it, and separates from everything else. And the more and more beliefs that we create, the more and more we solidify our identity and get caught up in avidya, this forgetting who we truly are, the more we create this sense of separation. And the separation is the default system of why we suffer and why we have difficulty in life. And then we spend our life seeking, looking for that happiness. But we look outside when it's an inside job. And that's what a yoga coach does. It helps people create flow again, to remove the boundaries, to remove the binding, and open up into flow. And when you're flowing in life, you're happy, right? And when you're flowing, you tap into insight and inspiration. And when you're flowing, you can start to stabilize those higher vibrational feeling states. And eventually in the white circle, that's freedom, that's liberation. So we have this initial thing of the mind, and that's like in the yoga texts, that's what they talk about. The definition, yoga chitta vritti nirodha, yoga, like now happens when chitta, the field of awareness, is free of all the vritti, the movements of the mind. And when we come into stillness and when the mind stills, the space opens up, awareness opens, and we stay present to now. And when we can do that, when we can meet life moment to moment as it arises, this is what a tantrika is, right? Life meeting life, and it's flowing. Like there's a really interesting stat. Like when you look at little kids, toddlers, they smile about 350 times a day, right? And we know that, we're very drawn to it because they haven't formed an opinion of how the world is. They're simply flowing. Then adolescence, it's like 120 times a day. And then when we get to adults, it's like 7 to 12 times a day. And we lose that sense of happiness because we've bound all the space. We've created separation. And then we're looking outside. So the whole system of yoga is to remove those bindings. Now, when you look at it as the mind, as the initial thing, what happens on the next layer, that kind of light red layer, is that our energy system reorganizes itself around those belief systems. And then our body on the outside becomes a mirror of that. It shapes itself to our beliefs and how our energy shapes itself. And then the outside is the life that we're living. It's reflecting 100% what we're paying attention to. So what a yoga life coach does is that they do the reverse journey. We start to go back in. And as a body, how does interruption show up? Tension patterns, muscles that are switched off, immobilized joints, contracted diaphragms. So we're working on all those layers to start to create sthira and sukha. Right? And sthira and sukha is the balance between doing and allowing. And that lets the body to come into deep stillness. See, the point of doing the asana is so that the body can open up to the subtle body, so that the physical body becomes a gateway to the mystical, right? To the divine. That's the idea of it. So when we're looking at a body, we want to, as a yoga coach, we look with different eyes. We're looking at where is consciousness flowing? Where is consciousness bound in this body? Where is it held? And what different shapes or templates can we use to open the body up, to convince the body, to show the body a different way of being and opening up the energy flow. Then when we come into the subtle body, how does interruption show? In the nervous system, impurities in the nervous system, imbalances in the nervous system, imbalances in the breath. shutting down nadis, energy pathways, getting caught up in duality, moving away from the channels that connect us back into singularity. And then, of course, the mind. The mind is that root cause of what's happening there. So we're working on all those different layers. And what a yoga coach does is that it helps people be accountable. So we're giving them very specific practices to their body, to their energy system, to their minds. And then we're holding them accountable to the practices. And not only that, we're doing it through the relationship. The relationship is very powerful. So we're understanding where they're at, where they want to go, and then how to use all the tools and resources of yoga to remove the bindings, remove the interference, so they can move towards that person. Now, it's very interesting because, like, if I look out into the world, I go, wow, people are asleep. Man, like, when are people going to wake up? Right? And it's not a judgment, because there's the teachers above me and those layers doing the same thing. When are these people going to wake up? And I'm sure there's layers upon layers. But our world, how it is, and how much we move through life with ease and grace depends on flow. So as it happens, everything's energy. We know this. Science tells us this. Sadhguru says, all life is energy. It's just moving from one form to another, right? These glasses are made of the same energy as the computer I'm speaking on, the microphone, as me. It's the same energy. The guru is made of the same energy. We're just learning to become more subtle human beings. And when you can vibrate at a higher level, when your pitch and frequency increases, right, then you perceive the world differently. And if we go down a rabbit hole a little bit, all of these layers of like 3D, 4D, 5D, all these higher levels of consciousness are coded into the DNA and RNA. So when we're able to remove the bindings and open up the frequency and pitch, these codes get unlocked and we start to see the world differently. Was it not there before? Of course it was there. We just couldn't see it. So my teachers have helped me to see a different world, a higher possibility. And as a yoga coach, we're helping our students move towards this higher possibility and higher possibility and higher possibility. That's the power of it. Now, there's so many, I'm going to give you a link at the end of this where I've kind of listed down the 20 differences between teaching and coaching. Right? It just kind of breaks it down into different categories. And that model of teaching, it's an old model, it's an old paradigm, like teaching asana classes at the studio. It's still going to be around. Is it useful? Of course it's useful. There's some amazing asana teachers out there, but that's what they are. You're an asana teacher. If you're not teaching anything else, that's what you are. And again, it's not a judgment, because there's some amazing teachers doing a fantastic job in that space. But when you're working as a yoga life coach, you're working with the whole human being. You're working on all these different layers in the background. And if you're only working on a physical level, then you're going to get a physical outcome. But if you're working on a whole body level, then this is transforming the whole person. So really it's deciding, do you want to stay in the fitness industry, or do you want to be in the transformation industry? Do you want to take people and help them, with the flexibility, with strength, with releasing stress, with calming down, with like all of those things are great. And if that's where you want to go, fantastic. But if you want to take it to the next level, if you want to take yoga to how it was designed by the gurus, what all the texts are there to show us how to do, if you want to work at that level, then Yoga Life Coach and yoga coaching is a great option to start looking into. Below this, there's a link to the 20 differences between teaching and coaching. There's also a link to look at what we're doing with Yoga Life Coach. There's very flexible time options and payment options. There's also, when you go to the website there's a link if you want to chat to me. That's fine as well. We'll just have a chat about where you're at, where you want to go, and see if we're the right fit and this would be useful for you. But I think this is very important. I think it's going to happen. There's so many people that are looking for transformation now. Just look outside your door. I mean, or even look inside your own house. The world is changing very quickly. Minds do not deal with change. So people are struggling, and they're looking for people that have solutions. They're looking for people that can navigate through this very tumultuous time for many people. And a yoga life coach can do that, because, you know, one of my visions is that yoga teachers that are properly educated to the full system of yoga become, you know, the leading edge of transformation, well-being, and health on the planet. So if that's something that you're interested in, then click on those links. If you want to have a chat, that's cool. We'll chat. Namaste.